All right, it's another SEC Big 12 matchup at the Sugar Bowl. That's been the contract for the last few years, and we've seen both sides take wins in the last couple tries. And this year it's Auburn and Oklahoma. We bring in Jamie Hancock from Preps Nation to help us break it down. And Jamie, hope you had a nice Christmas. It's good to see you.
It's been a busy Christmas. I'm glad to be with you, Mark.
So I think, like we talked about before we hit the record button, bowl season's about motivation, which is difficult to conjecture on. We can take our best shot. It's also about matchups. So this one is a clear puncher, counter punch, where you've got one team that's used to spreading the field, playing a wide open game in a wide open league versus a more physical, more conventional system on both sides of the ball. And it should be a pretty fascinating matchup. And I'll throw this at you to get you started. Sean White obviously won the starting job, got banged up late in the season. His status is somewhat uncertain. Cam Petway obviously got his sea legs about game 3 and went through a torrid run of tearing up SEC defenses, but he's been banged up, so that's obviously a huge key to this game.
Absolutely. I think you mentioned the fact that this is one of the more interesting matchups on paper coming into the bowl season, and I believe that to be the case as you have the SEC going against the Big 12. You have Bob Stoops being able to take on the SEC, as he's liked to take some shots at them over the years, and that's always fun. And these two teams are complete opposites coming into this game. Auburn is supposed to be the stout defense, and Oklahoma is coming from the league where, offense is abound. So it makes it really interesting when you talk about this game on paper. Looking at Auburn, I think, the keys on offense are simple. The health of Sean White and the health of Cam Petway will be paramount in what they're trying to do on the offensive side of the football. As good as Cameron Petway was in that 8-game stretch where he was absolutely unbelievable, Auburn was anemic without him, and much of that time was due to the fact that Sean White was also out at the same time. So anyone who started paying attention to Auburn towards the end of the season, which a lot of people did because they became relevant at that point, Sean White had gotten injured, prior to the Vanderbilt game. And then Cameron Petway got injured in the Vanderbilt game. So many people started tuning into Auburn and said, these guys are not that good. Why are people talking about them? Well, their two facilitators were really gone. And as well as Johnson, the backup running back, who Kerryon Johnson has done a great job for them, good solid backup, he had a high ankle sprain at the same time. So the offense just threw a parachute out behind them at that point. So the health of those players is key for Auburn, but Sean White's health is the most important thing to the Auburn offense coming into this game, along with being able to run the football north-south against a smaller defensive front, as well as efficiency in the passing game and trying to stay on schedule with their offense and not get behind the chain.
Hey, Jamie, something else that we see repeatedly during bowl season, and we've seen it just in the last couple of days, i.e. Boston College and Wake Forest today, where two teams that were anemic on offense throughout the season against their conference go up against like-seeded teams that should be able to match them from another conference. And because of the 4 or 5 weeks to prepare, offensive coordinators, sometimes maybe they tweak a little too much, but sometimes it's good for an offense to kind of reconstruct itself, maybe find some mismatches, some things that they would like to do better, tighten things up, and sometimes they come out, especially on offense, not so much on defense, but on offense, you see an entirely different team. And I think this is a much higher caliber team when you talk about recruited talent than when we see at Wake Forest and Boston College, that there's a possibility that Auburn comes out and they're just a much better offensive unit, and especially when that comes from a guy that's able to mix and match like Gus Malzahn.
I agree with the fact that when you give a team that is just decent offensively some more time to prepare and add some wrinkles to show the other team, that is a big benefit to what they do. Gus Malzahn has repeatedly been known for a lot of window dressing with his offense. He's going to show you multiple formations, 5, 6, 7, 8 formations, but show you the same play out of those different formations, and they look like different plays to the defense. So that's something that they hopefully will be able to institute if you're an Auburn fan and get the things going that they need to get, and also take some shots downfield. the last part of the season, they were not able to get the ball downfield. It was obvious that Sean White was injured from that standpoint, and that really limited what they were looking to do. Having a healthy offense will be a key to what they want to do on that side of the football.
Oklahoma brings as much offensive talent to the table as just about anybody in the country. Baker Mayfield, one of the very best at what he does. He's not an NFL specimen, but he throws the ball well enough at the collegiate level. Plus, he just makes plays, and he's kind of a wizard when it comes to escaping the rush and getting outside the pocket and knowing when to run and when to find somebody downfield. D.D. Westbrook was good enough at the receiver position to get an invite to New York for the Heisman Trophy presentation. Then you got this Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine combination in the backfield running both inside and outside. So from a talent perspective, from a skill position standpoint, Oklahoma looks to be good. But the last two times that they've lined up against the likes of an Auburn front, Ohio State this season, Clemson last year, they had some issues. So people forget that there are five guys up front that need to block for all these playmakers, and that sometimes can turn out to be the game.
Oklahoma's offense comes in highly touted, and that is deserved. I really do like Baker Mayfield. I think he does a fantastic job as a quarterback. And even though he was invited to the Heisman presentation, I don't believe that he gets the credit that he deserves all around the country, because some people just discount him from the statue side of things. No, he's not the biggest guy. No, he's not the fastest guy. No, he doesn't have the biggest arm, and no, he won't be taken in the first round. But he's a guy that just makes plays. He's a football player, very intelligent, does what he needs to do with the football. D.D. Westbrook is obviously a very talented player. To get invited as a wide receiver, that's fantastic for him. He doesn't do it because he's huge. He does it because he's good. Perine is a big, huge running back, and he's very powerful, and that's interesting to watch him. He hasn't had the season this year I thought he would, but then again, I think people were putting too much on him from the way he busted out the year before. Joe Mixon, obviously very talented, brought a little bit of cloud around the program, if you will, and a distraction when you didn't need it. However, hopefully for the players there, they were able to channel their thoughts the best way they could, and hopefully, Mixon is able to learn from the things that have gone on, as well as everybody around the country in situations like that. But when you talk about the front for Auburn, I don't know, as talented as as Ohio State is up front, Auburn is just as talented, if not better right now at the front positions. Carl Lawson and Montravius Adams are two of the more talented players in the country when you talk about guys on the same team. They'll both have a shot at being first-round picks, definitely be first or second round. They're senior. Well, Lawson is a senior in the classroom. Montravius Adams is a senior on the field. Lawson could come back if he wants to. Those guys are very talented as well as very seasoned. You throw in a couple more players that can be dynamic, as you have with their freshman defensive end in Marlon Davidson, who has been fantastic. You also bring in Jeffrey Holland, who is a speed rusher off the edge. Derek Brown is another guy that comes in and plays tackle and defensive end at 6'3", 335 as a freshman. They're very talented up front. And they're pretty good in the back end, which really mixes well for their pass rush.
Jamie Hancock from Preps Nation helping us break down the Sugar Bowl with Oklahoma number 7 in the country, taking on 14th ranked Auburn. So, Jamie, I never put you on the spot to make a prediction. I won't do that now, but I also want to give you the opportunity, if you'd like to make a prediction. Oklahoma 3-point favorite. You can either give us a pick or just let us know how this one may play out, or if Auburn's to win over a very talented Oklahoma team, what's the formula?
There are a lot of scenarios that you can see happening. I feel like this. I look at the fact that Auburn played very well defensively against Clemson, which has to be similar to Oklahoma in skill and the way that they go about things. Texas A&M was a team that put up 29 against Auburn. They really schemed well against Auburn that day and put them in some situations that I think they probably learned from. And then you come to another team who skill-wise is just as good as Oklahoma. They are not there experience-wise, and that's Alabama. Alabama can do everything that Oklahoma can do. They just don't do it quite as well just yet with a young quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who is fantastic in his own right. And Alabama put up 30. So I really think that Oklahoma is going to score. I do believe that they're going to score between 20 and 30 points. I do think that that's the case. However, from the Oklahoma side, I look at their defense and the struggles that they've had in many games of stopping the run. If Sean White is healthy and if Cameron Petway is healthy, Auburn will cover 3 points and may cover it well. If not, if Sean White is not healthy, I do not see a path for Auburn to win that football game. So that's where it hinges for me, is the health of number 13 for Auburn. And he is much like, he's not as good as Baker Mayfield, so don't get me wrong there, but much like Baker Mayfield, he doesn't get the credit that he deserves because he's not the biggest guy, he's not the fastest guy, he's not flashy. He is a football player, and he is the most important player to the Auburn Tigers.
If you're going through recent football history looking for matchups between the SEC and the Big 12, there just aren't many. They don't play much during the regular season. I know Auburn had a trip to Manhattan, Kansas, and a slugfest against Kansas State 3 or 4 years ago. There aren't many of these. So they signed a contract to play in the Sugar Bowl. It was a playoff game 2 years ago, Alabama, Ohio State, so throw that one out. And basically it's 1-1 because Oklahoma surprised Bama a couple years ago in 2013, and last year Ole Miss completely annihilated Oklahoma State in a game that was not competitive in the second half. So this kind of breaks the tie at the Sugar Bowl with Oklahoma taking on Auburn. They've only met one time. That was the 1972 Sugar Bowl. Oklahoma won that one way, way back. Jamie Hancock from Preps Nation breaking down Auburn and Oklahoma. We'll definitely enjoy this one. Jamie, thanks for jumping on.
Always my pleasure, Mark.